G'day viewers, here's some video I shot at the Occupy Melbourne protests on Friday 21st of October. Now this was the pivotal day for these particular protests because the people camping the sit-in protest in a place called City Square, a largely unused bit of dirt in the middle of the city in front of that building you can see in the background, they'd been told they had to get out, and of course most of them didn't. So they got surrounded by cops and they were being arrested, and right about the point this video starts, the cops had gotten serious about dragging people out. So as a diversion, a lot of the hundreds and hundreds of people who were surrounding the campsite to basically either support the protesters or just to see what was happening, they went out and occupied the street, a very, very busy intersection in the middle of the city. And you can see the mounted police at this point have moved the small group that was occupying. That first attempt to clear them didn't really work. You can see people ringed around the police doing the shame, shame, shame chant. It was actually really interesting to watch. This was my lunch hour. I was dying of curiosity as to what was happening, so I went down to have a look, and stuff was certainly happening. Now here comes a big group of people who said, you know what, if we all just walk back, they can't really stop us, and so they've gone to go back at this intersection at this point. Now I have to admit, what you're seeing here is what blows my mind about what I consider a ridiculous, over-the-top, heavy-handed response by the Mayor of Melbourne and the State Premier, both arch-conservatives politically. They sent this massive police presence in. God, I didn't know we had this many police. You see them dragging out a few of the last occupiers of the Occupy Melbourne camp here. Not going easily, most of them. Either being frog marched by 2 cops or in some cases being carried by 3 or 4 cops. I love how many people are there taking pictures. Now there's one thing I will say for the cops. Few people got punched in the head, few people got pepper sprayed. I honestly think a lot of the talk about police brutality is overstated. In the vast majority of those cases, all you would have had to do to avoid anything from the cops is to get out of their way. Cops still did stuff that I really don't support, but what they did do that I appreciate, they never once threatened anyone with a camera. They never once told anyone they weren't allowed to photograph or video what was going on. But they did move people on and arrest people. Now you can see this is a little bit later. The crowd occupying the street is larger than ever. And this is what I think anyone with a brain would know. There's a relatively small protest that's not hurting anyone. Oh, this is later again. I went away and came back, and the cops had pushed everyone out of that intersection, and the intersection's ringed by cops now. They've cleared out the camp, and then they cleared out the intersection. And so I thought, oh, okay, stuff keeps happening. I'd go back to work and I thought, no, I have to come out and see what's happening. And there would in fact be more stuff happening. Big mobile containment, that's like a mobile jail there to put people in. And this large group of protesters is now further down the street where they've been pushed by the cops. What I was saying about the heavy-handed tactics, it's just, You've turned something that was a small protest with 100 people to huge, like hundreds if not 1,000 more people showed up saying, oh no, they've got to chuck everyone out, we've got to show support. And when you include just the passers-by and sightseers who got caught up in this crowd, I reckon there was at least 1,000 people there. I'm lousy at assessing crowd numbers. Some people might say it's a lot. You see, a lot of people, and most of them are fairly interested in what's going on. So this attitude of the authorities blows my mind a little, in that they just made it worse. Oh, and I left again, but I passed these guys. a huge number of cops, some in riot gear, who were going around behind the protest, and I really didn't like that idea. Now there's some live video blogging from me.
Alright, well I'm hanging out in the middle of the Occupy Melbourne crowd, which I wasn't planning to do. I was leaving, I was going back to work, and I passed a shitload of cops, like 40 or 50, some in riot gear, and they were talking about where they were going. They were going to go around behind the crowd to do, I don't know what they're going to attempt to either arrest people or just close people in here, but it creeped me right the hell out, I have to admit. So I thought I'd come back and see what's going to happen next. I was right, they're coming up this way, maybe just to contain people, maybe to arrest people, I don't know. I've got to tell you viewers, I've got a pathological aversion to getting arrested. This is some bullshit, like seriously. I was leaving when I saw them coming around, so I thought, you know, be a neighbour, tell people what's happening, and it turns out my suspicion was right. There we go. Well, let's see what happens next. The crowd's being your classic asymmetric threat now, just changing tactics. Cops do one thing, everyone waits for a while, comes up with another tactic, then the cops have to react. And then everyone else who can react a bit more quickly than cops does something else, and the cops sit around for a while, and so it goes. This has been going in waves all day. The cops I saw circling around behind me, lined all the way up the street. I actually suspect they may be happy to let the protesters stay in that little space they're in if they don't block another intersection. That remains to be seen, because I don't think the cops themselves know what they're going to do at this point. But at the moment, it's relatively peaceful, but you never know what's going to happen from here.
Yeah, what happened is the cops got much more involved in pushing people back. They don't care how you push. Like you see that older guy there who I'm pretty sure wasn't part of the protest. He was just interested in what was happening, and he's not really interested in getting shoved by cops. Who is, really? Not me. You'll see me go off to the side and end up behind the cops soon. Because if it hasn't been made clear so far, I will point out I wasn't part of the protest. I wanted to see what was happening, but I wasn't an active part of it. To be honest, I wasn't all that down with Occupy Melbourne. I wasn't sure of the value of it, of the necessity for it. I'm 100% supportive of Occupy Wall Street and everything about it. But simply put, the situation in Australia is nowhere near as bad. Our political and economic system has not been as savagely raped by corporate interests. Things are much better here. So it did feel it was a little bit of Me Too action going on. Like, yeah, something's happening, I want to be part of it. But if you want to get me completely on board with a bunch of dirty layabout hippies who are just too lazy to get a job, not what I think of them, that's what the media says about them, well, you launch an over-the-top, out-of-scale police action against a peaceful protest, and I will be on their side real quick, because this is some bullshit. Getting back to the point where I find it a little hard to understand what the authorities thought they were doing. To me, they're somewhere between stupid, if they didn't see what they were doing was turning a small protest with 100 people into a hugely more popular protest with hundreds, if not thousands of people now feeling like they have a really good reason to be actively involved. Were they too stupid to see that? Or were they just basically so goddamn obnoxious they didn't care? I mean, the mayor, particularly John Doyle, just comes across as almost a caricature of the obnoxious elitist Tory wanker. It was just, what was he thinking? Is he so contemptuous of people whose politics he disagrees with that he thinks nothing of crushing them with this massive police presence? I think it's an appalling miscalculation, because being in this crowd and seeing how many people have just gone, this is bullshit, what is happening with these cops? Now, anything that happens with Occupy Melbourne is going to have hundreds more impassioned people involved. And look, just in response to any reports you've heard, someone who doesn't want to be arrested, who does? Honestly, dude, at this point, I would have gone quietly. I would have just walked along with the cops, because once they take you out like that, you're going. So that whole trying to lie down and kicking and screaming just gets you hurt. And I'm not that into making a point that I'm going to be, I'd be this dude, I'd be just getting walked along, yeah, fine, you got me, I'm walking along. I would walk along with them, I wouldn't fight. I don't want to get arms twisted and broken, and I don't want to get the crap punched out of me as soon as nobody's looking. So, yeah, to me, all this day showed is the authorities are completely clueless. They are far more interested in smacking people down who dare to step out of line than they are in getting any sort of realistic resolution to a situation. And honestly, I can only see this escalating from now on. They've got far more people interested in, and they've clearly got no fear with being brutal.